All right, I promised to get into the next video with actual prohibitions on homosexuality. But my purpose is to show that the vast majority of people claiming the Bible as their source for their disdain for homosexuality are often hypocrites. Now, others describe it far better, but I wanted to throw my layman's approach. So let's look to see if there's differences in versions. There isn't much. Leviticus 18:22. You shall not lie with a male as with a woman. It is an abomination. Let's look at the New International Version. Do not have sexual relations with a man as one does with a woman. That is detestable. Now, what I have heard several times is that it is a moral law and that there are distinctions between moral law and ceremonial law. But the scholarship has no such distinctions. How do we know that? Well, let's take a look at labeling. The argument that moral laws are distinct from dietary laws often hinges on the idea that moral laws are universal while dietary laws are just ceremonial customs. However, the Hebrew terms do not support this rigid divide. And now we are going into actual languages. But we're going to go down a little further because the arguments I have listened to talk about specific words. So here we go. Abomination. To'iba. And that might be mispronounced. I did not study ancient Hebrew. The same word, abomination, is used for eating unclean animals. Leviticus 11:10. Sexual immorality. There we go. Leviticus 18:22. And then idolatry in Deuteronomy. This shows that dietary choices were seen as a moral issue of purity in the Old Testament context. So, there is no distinction between not having sex with a man and eating a cheeseburger. Those are both abominations in the meaning of the Old Testaments. This is further discussed. Talks about the very first law about diet, and that was not eating of a certain tree. We all read about that. Then we show an example where they are all intermixed in one statement. Now again, if you were looking this as a search as being inadequate and said, oh, he just does a search, you can't trust Google AI. Well, it cites the specific text. Ezekiel 33:25-26. Now, here is a summary, but if you would need to go to Ezekiel 25-26 to see whether or not this statement is true. The prophet explicitly condemns the people for their moral failures, bloodshed, sexual immorality, in the exact same sentence as eating with the blood. There we go. Dietary and ethical were in the same sentence. Is it true? Let's go find out. Let's take it. Let's go. Let's look at the NSRVUE. Paste. Lord God, you eat flesh with the blood and lift up your eyes to your idols and shed blood, and then you possess the land. You depend on your sword, you commit abominations, and each of you defiles his neighbor's wife. Shall you then possess the land? So, we see that the AI search overview is adequately representing that the term being used for an abomination applies to dietary restrictions. So, anybody that comes up and says homosexuality is immoral, and I see them eating a cheeseburger, I'm going to call them out as a hypocrite, because they are. Everybody picks and chooses what they are going to act upon. But you cannot claim righteousness unless you are 100% observant of the same rules. By the way, the funny part is, in the Bible, there's only restrictions on male behavior. Male shouldn't lie with another male, but there is no strict text saying a female can't. There is a prohibition with males and masturbation, but there is no strict text about it. Now, they do discuss that such actions are impure and should be prohibited, but there is no explicit text. One more reason to be envious of the female gender. The female sex. Gender is not biological. Not exclusively, anyway. Well, let's see how this goes over. Have a good one.